Hello everybody, welcome to your weekly devotion. A couple weeks ago, I had a basketball tryout, and I love basketball, and it was the time of year for the school basketball season to begin. This tryout started at 6:30 in the morning, and I decided that I won't make my parents get up and out of the house for me that early in the morning, so I'll bike to this tryout. Now, on the morning of, I'm running a little bit late, just a few minutes, so I should still make it on time. While I was biking, I had to rest my gym bag on one of the handlebars, as my backpack had no room for it. Now, of course, it's very early in the morning, no light is out, so I'm just paying attention to staying where I should be. But what I didn't see was that the strap for my gym bag had tangled up in the tire, and I didn't realize this until it got wrapped up enough to fully stop my bike. It wasn't going anywhere. I get off my bike and begin to pull and prod at this strap, trying to get it loose, but it is not budging. And of course, I can't really see anything that's happening as the sun hadn't risen yet. For about 10 minutes, I was pulling this way and that on the strap, trying to loosen it, until I felt around once more and realized that the tangling wasn't the big problem. The rope had just gotten wedged into a crevice on the tire. It was already a few minutes past the time the tryouts were supposed to start at this point, but I dug the rope out and got it undone from the tire and went on my way to the school. I ended up getting there in time for the actual tryout to begin, but during this struggle, I didn't see any way out. I thought I was stuck there until I ended up calling my dad to come pick me up. I thought there was no way that I was going to make it on time. Many times, we can be like this with God. We get wrapped up in a situation and see no way out. We push and pull and try everything that we can think of, but nothing seems to work. When we are in a situation like that, we can think that it'll just last forever, with no end in sight. However, we just keep hacking at the fruit of the problem and not the root of it. Oftentimes in life, the obvious results of a situation are not the things to attack if we want to end a situation. These are often just the outside appearance of an inward problem that needs to be solved. So we go after the obvious, accomplishing nothing. Meanwhile, there's a much easier and effective solution waiting there for us if we just took the time to think about how to go about it properly. Let's take a look at the story of David and Goliath. Two armies gathered in opposite camps on either side of a large valley. On one side was the Philistines, on the other side was the Israelites. So Giant enters the valley from the Philistine side. He was at the very least 9.5 feet, well taller than the tallest man that we've ever measured. And this guy is decked out in full armor. He had a spear and a staff, and even an armor bearer with him. He calls out and he makes a proposition to the people of Israel. He tells them that they will send out one man to fight this giant. If Goliath the giant wins, then the Philistines win the battle. If the fighter from Israel wins, Israel wins the battle. Pretty simple. However, the big question was, who's going to fight this guy? Who is mighty enough to best this literal giant? And so every single day for 40 days, this giant came out and gave the same proclamation, and everybody was too scared to go face him. Now David was the youngest of 8 sons, and his 3 oldest brothers were all in the military. So this means that David was probably between 13 to 15, based on the Israel military age of 20, and the fact that he had 4 older brothers who were all not in the military yet. David got sent by his father to this active military zone to bring his brothers some lunch. But when he gets there, he hears about this giant who has terrorized his people for 40 days straight. While the rest of the Israelites were cowering from the proclamation once again, David was angry. David realized this giant was disrespecting God's people, and through that, God as well. David wasn't having any of that, and so David offered to do it. David went out armed only with a slingshot and a few stones, and he went and killed Goliath. What happened is that the army was too focused on the outside problem, one man versus a giant, but the real fight wasn't there. The real fight was the one true God versus no God. Israel had a mighty God on their side, and an angry one at that, as Goliath was disrespecting God. Whoever stood up against this giant wouldn't be fighting alone, but would have God on their side. But the army was too wrapped up in the outside appearance of Goliath to see the real fight that was taking place, a spiritual one. But David knew the truth. David saw the real solution to the problem. David knew he wasn't fighting this battle alone. Too often we can be like the army of Israel or myself. We get wrapped up in what we think is happening instead of looking at the actual problem occurring. We pull and pull on what we assume will fix it. Meanwhile, God has an easy way to show us if we just listen to what He has to say. Sometimes we need to take a step back and let God help us to see what is necessary to fix our problem. We need to be like David and realize there's a simpler way to remedy a conflict, and that is God's way. I would have gotten to the tryout a whole lot sooner if I fully felt out the situation to start with, instead of pulling and pulling, changing nothing. Israel wouldn't have waited 40 days for a smart teenager to come along if they just remembered they had a God on their side who could win this battle for them. When you take a step back and take God's way, the right way, things can work out a lot quicker, easier, and better. Have a great day.